All right, so we are working on Photoshop today. This is your first lab in Photoshop. I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to show you how to download the images. We'll look at the lab itself. I'll show you how to open up Photoshop, a little bit of the tools and how the Photoshop looks and works. The first thing we probably want to do is open up Photoshop. So if you hit the Start menu down here, you should see Adobe Photoshop in the list. If you don't, you can just type in PHOTO and it should pop up on the list here as well. So we're going to open that. I'm going to let that open in the background. If you look at the actual lab in Google Classroom, you will see that I'll usually include an image that we're going to edit or modify. That's what Photoshop is for, is to edit and modify photos. Sometimes a few of them don't have photos. We actually created ourselves. But for this one, we have one. It's called Rec Tool. And then we have also here the instructions. These are instructions. If you don't want to listen to the video, you can just read the instructions and follow along in the instructions. For the most part, I kind of follow the instructions, but sometimes I'll skip around. All right. So to get an image from Google Classroom, to save it onto our computers, we've done this before, but this is kind of a review. So you're going to click on the image here. And there's two ways you could do it. You could right-click, Save Image As, and just save it in like your downloads. That's where I'm going to save mine. Or you can go up here and click More Actions, open a new window, and then you'll get a download button here to download it. So two different ways to do the actual image. We need this image because this is what we're going to actually modify in Photoshop. All right. So once we have the image downloaded, we're going to open up Photoshop. Mine's in the background right here. This is what Photoshop looks like when you have it opened. I have a bunch of recent files here. You probably won't unless you've already used it. Go ahead and do open because we're just going to open the file. Open. We're going to navigate to where we downloaded it, to downloads. That's where I downloaded mine. And then you're going to open up the image here. And now you have the image loaded into Photoshop. All right. If you look on the left-hand side, these are all your tools that you have. It looks very similar to Illustrator. If you click and hold on them, you get other tools. Okay, click and hold, you get the other list of tools. What we're going to focus on today, or this coming weeks, we're going to focus on the rectangular marquee tool, the elliptical marquee tool. We're going to go through most of these tools step by step, all these selection tools. So in Photoshop, a lot of times what you want to do is select just a piece of an image and either cut it out or a piece of an image and modify it or color it differently. Say you had a person and you wanted to cut the person out to remove the background. This is kind of how you would do it. So to select pixels or select different pieces of the image in Photoshop, you have to use what's called selection tools. The selection tools are the main ones. The most basic right here is the rectangle marquee tools, which we'll learn today. So if I click on that tool, it actually allows me to click and drag boxes on or rectangles on the image here. Okay, so click and drag, click and drag. Every time I click and drag is a new selection. Okay. So say I wanted to take this red box here and I say, well, there's a bunch of red in the image. I actually want to change this color. So I'm going to select this red box out like this. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is apply what's called an adjustment layer. The adjustments are here on the right-hand side. You'll see layers down here. You'll see properties, and then you'll see adjustments. What you want to do is click adjustments. And then you're going to click on, these are the bunch of different adjustments. We're going to go through a bunch of them. The main one we go through is usually hue, saturation, brightness, and curves. Those are the main ones. Today we're going to do hue, saturation. So if I click on that, you'll notice that it has this little hue saturation, and then it has this little black and white thing. We'll talk about that later. That's the mask. So now if I click and drag this, you'll see that the box or the selection that I made changes colors. Okay. So I can make it whatever color I want. So I want it to make it a yellow. Okay. That's it. That's it for the lab. Now, do it one more time. You could do this blue one here if you wanted to, because that's kind of a rectangle. We could do this yellow square. Let's make this one red. So again, highlight it. It's selected. Go back up here to adjustments, hue saturation, and then I can change the color. I can also change the saturation, so I can make it like brighter, stuff like that. Lightness, you can lighten it up. Okay. So that's it. That is the rectangular marquee tool, and then the adjustment layers. You'll see that now you actually have two other layers. We'll talk about this later, but you'll notice that they have kind of a cutout. Wherever it's white is basically going to be affected. Black is not being affected. Those are called masks. We'll talk about that later, though. So, to turn it in, go up here to File, Export, Quick Export as PNG, and then you can just save it wherever you want to save it. You can save it right back into Downloads if you want. Rename this, though, to maybe like your name. Put your name in it. Okay, that's saved. I would go back to Google Classroom. I would turn in that image to this Google Classroom thing.